It started with a desperate text for baby formula and ended with a wedding that no one saw coming. This is the story of Mira Genzina, single mother who found not just survival, but love, purpose, and the courage to stand her ground against a world that tried to silence her. Before we dive in, hit the subscribe button and tell us where in the world you're watching from. You never think a typo could change your life. I remember the way my fingers trembled as I typed the message. It was past midnight. Max had been crying for hours. He was hungry, and all I had left was a bottle of water and hope. I'd already boiled rice twice that day to stretch the food. My fridge buzzed hollow. I was staring at an empty can of formula. I'd rinsed it out, read the label like it might somehow refill itself. But it didn't. That's the thing about poverty. It's not loud. It's quiet. It's the silence in a kitchen with no food. It's the sound of your baby's stomach growling and you pretending it isn't. So I did what I never thought I would do. I opened my phone and scrolled to the name of a local community outreach coordinator who sometimes helped families in need. Her name was Melissa. I typed the message fast, without thinking. Hi, Melissa. I'm so sorry to message you this late, but I need help. I don't have money for formula tonight. Max is crying and I'm scared. Please, if there's anything you can do. I hit send, then stared at the screen. Only it wasn't Melissa. Had texted, the response came 10 minutes later. I believe you have the wrong number. My heart dropped. I checked the number. It wasn't Melissa. I felt sick, embarrassed. I started typing an apology. But before I could hit send, another message came. What's your name? I blinked. Mira Jensen. And Max is your son? Yes, there was a pause. How old is he? 8 months. I stared at the typing bubbles on the screen, waiting. Then another message arrived. I'm transferring $300 to this number. You can get formula and groceries. Please use it well, I gasped. Tears welled up in my eyes. I can't accept that from a stranger. You just did. So then the money came through. I stared at my banking app in shock. $300. It's just like that. Who are you? Another message. Someone who's been hungry before. I was crying now. Not just because of the money, but because someone saw me. Saw my desperation. Max's need. Thank you. Thank you so much. Buy what you need. And if you're willing, tell me your story. I didn't sleep that night. I fed Max and watched him fall asleep with a full belly and then curled up next to him and typed out everything. I told him about losing my job when the pandemic hit. Max's father leaving the moment things got hard. It's about scraping by on cleaning gigs and night shifts at the diner. About skipping meals so Max wouldn't have to. I sent it all. There was silence for a long time. Then a message came. I'm Jackson Albright, the CEO of Helix Core. I sat up straight. My throat went dry. I Googled him. Net worth, $12.7 billion. Founder of one of the most powerful tech companies in the world. Why was he helping me? You send me money? Because I could. Because someone should. Why me? Because you asked. And because you didn't pretend. It was surreal, like something out of a movie. Over the next few days, we texted, just short messages. He asked about Max. About my work. About my dreams. No one had asked me about my dreams in years. I wanted to work in marketing once. I used to make graphics and run small campaigns in college. I dropped out when I got pregnant. Would you consider going back to work? Who would hire me? I would. My fingers froze. Excuse me? Helix Core entry level, but with training? It as a chance, not a favor. Why would you do that? Because talent can come from anywhere. And I think you've got something. I couldn't believe it. Was this real? He followed with, I'll have my office send you an official offer. You'll start as a junior admin. We'll provide support for daycare too. If you accept, I don't know what to say, just say yes. I said yes. The next morning, a sleek black car pulled up to my apartment. A driver handed me a folder with the Helix Core logo and a printed contract. Inside was a welcome letter, a training outline, and the promise of a new beginning. I held Max in my arms, kissed his forehead, and whispered, This is our shot, baby. Let's make it count. I didn't know then what lay ahead. But I knew one thing. One wrong number had just become the right direction. There are a few moments in life when you can actually feel the ground shift beneath your feet. That morning, the morning I walked through the doors of Helix Core, was one of them. I had barely slept the night before. Max woke twice, probably sensing my nerves. I had laid out my outfit 3 times, a navy blouse with the tag still attached, and black slacks I hadn't worn since my last job interview, nearly a year ago. My shoes were worn, but they were polished, and I carried a tote bag filled with printed resumes and sheer hope. As I stepped into the sleek glass tower that housed Helix Core, I felt every insecurity rise to the surface. The lobby was immaculate. Polished marble floors, a water feature glistening beside modern white couches. People in tailored suits moved like they belonged, like they knew exactly where they were going. I was a mom with baby formula stains on her soul and self-doubt tucked behind her smile. The receptionist greeted me. "You must be Mira Jensen. Please take the elevator to the 22nd floor." My palms were slick with sweat as I rode the elevator alone. When the doors opened, I was met by an assistant named Rory Young, fast-talking, perfect hair. He led me to a large office lined with glass, where a view of the city stretched out beneath us like a painting. Jackson was already standing there, leaning against the desk, dressed in black slacks and a gray shirt with rolled-up sleeves. Not a suit, not a tie. Still, every inch, the billionaire. "You came," he said, smiling. "I almost didn't, but you did. That's the difference." He motioned to the chair across from him. "This isn't a test," he began, "but it is a step. You'll be working under my executive team as a junior admin. You'll have mentorship, resources, and most importantly, a fair shot." "Why me?" "Because you remind me of someone I knew. Someone who deserved a chance." He didn't elaborate, and I didn't press. The paperwork was signed that afternoon. Benefits included, a modest but stable salary, on-site daycare partially covered, a 3-month review clause. "I don't expect you to know everything," Jackson said, "but I expect you to try." I nodded. "I can do that." Oh. That night, I sat on my tiny balcony, staring at the skyline while Max slept in his crib. I didn't feel like a different person yet, but something inside me had shifted. A flicker of belief. A whisper that maybe, just maybe, I was more than my struggle. My first week was overwhelming. The office was a maze. Every corner buzzed with efficiency. Oh, meetings, coffee runs, slide, Dex investor calls. I sat in a cubicle near the window, buried under onboarding manuals and digital tools I'd never seen before. People were polite, but distant, curious, some clearly skeptical. I overheard one woman in the break room say, "She's the CEO's charity case." I pretended not to hear, but I did. Every word. My manager, Elise, was composed and efficient. Gave me my first assignment, scheduling meetings and reviewing calendar requests. I made mistakes, missed a reschedule, fumbled with software, sent one invite to the wrong department. But I learned fast. I started staying late, watching tutorials, on my phone while eating instant noodles at my desk. I asked questions, even when I feared they were dumb. I apologized when I slipped up and documented everything so I wouldn't repeat it. By the end of week 2, I had built a new system for tracking executive schedules that Elise praised in. Front of the team, Jackson noticed too. He dropped by my desk once and said, "You're making waves. Hopefully good ones. Progress is never silent, Mira. Keep pushing." Outside of work, things started to improve. With the daycare support, I could focus without worrying about Max. He was safe, cared for, even happy. He started babbling more, smiling wider. One day he took his first step. I missed it. When the daycare texted me a video of the moment, I cried in the women's restroom. Guilt washed over me, but so did pride. I was building a life he could walk into. That evening, Jackson saw me sitting alone in the break room, long after hours. "Rough day? You walked today?" I said, and I missed it. Jackson sat beside me. "I missed my first school play. My dad sent the chauffeur instead." That must have been hard. It was. Swore I'd be different. We sat in silence for a moment. You are different, I said. He gave me a long look. So are you. By the end of my first month, something changed. People started asking for my help. Elise gave me more responsibility. Jackson included me in meetings I didn't expect to be invited to. It wasn't smooth. I still felt like an imposter at times. I still dealt with whispers, side glances, occasional cold shoulders, but I showed up every day. One morning, Rory walked over and said, "You know, people are starting to talk. But now they're saying you're kind of amazing." I laughed. Just kind of, don't get cocky. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I belonged. Not because someone gave me a place, but because I earned it. And something deep inside me whispered, ... This was only the beginning. There's a strange calm that comes right before a storm. It had been nearly 3 months since I started at Helix Core. I had settled into my role, built a routine with Max, and found myself slowly becoming part of something bigger. I wasn't just working anymore, I was contributing. But something felt ... off. It began subtly. Odd calendar blocks that appeared after midnight, expense reports with strange formatting, financial presentations that shifted slightly depending on who viewed them. No glaring red flags, just ... ripples. At first I assumed I was imagining things. I was new after all. What did I know about corporate finance? But the feeling lingered. Then came the first real clue. I was helping prep slides for a quarterly board presentation. Elise, my manager, asked me to pull supporting data from our internal reporting system. I cross-checked figures from different departments. Something didn't add up. Marketing spend showed $200,000 less than finance had logged, and that wasn't just a rounding error. I flagged it for Elise. She frowned but dismissed it quickly. Probably just a sync issue. These things happen. But I saw the tension in her jaw. I didn't press yet. 2 weeks later, I noticed another inconsistency. A last-minute vendor payment, approved by Vincent Harmon, the CFO. It was for a company I'd never heard of, Valdera Solutions. $180,000. I Googled the company. Nothing. No website, no LinkedIn, no employee records. Just a shell name on a wire transfer. I brought it up casually to Rory over coffee. Ever heard of Valdera Solutions? He paused. Should I have? Finance logged a big payment to them last week. Rory frowned. Weird. I thought Jackson paused external contractor approvals last quarter. He leaned closer. Don't say anything yet. Let me poke around. That night, I stayed late and reviewed the access logs I had for the admin portal. Vincent Harmon had logged in at 2:13 a.m. the night before that payment. Alone, my heart pounded. Was I uncovering something serious? Or just connecting dots that weren't really there? Either way, I documented everything. A week passed. Rory followed up. I checked with procurement. They've never worked with Valdera. It's not in the official vendor system. That's when I knew this wasn't an error. So it was a leak. But who could I trust? Elise had brushed it off. Jackson. He was the CEO. If I accused his CFO of embezzlement without solid proof, it could backfire horribly. I needed more. I started investigating quietly, watching, listening. Vincent was always polite in meetings. Too polite? Too polished? He smiled with his mouth, not his eyes. Then one night, while delivering printouts to the executive floor, I passed his office. The door was ajar. Inside, he was arguing with someone on speakerphone. It's covered. No, she doesn't suspect anything. She's just some admin hire. A favor to the boss. My breath caught. I stepped back quickly, heart racing. Was he talking about me? That weekend, I drove to the public library. I logged into the state financial database and ran every public vendor associated with Helix Core. Valdera Solutions had a P.O. box in Delaware, the registrant name, Harbridge Trust. I traced it further. Harbridge Trust was managed by a firm in the Cayman Islands, a firm Vincent Harmon had invested in years ago. I had proof, or at least enough to get Jackson's attention. I scheduled a meeting with him, No assistant. Just us. He looked concerned the moment I walked in. Everything okay? Not really. I need you to listen. All the way. And I laid it out. The discrepancies. The shell company. The hidden vendor. The late-night access logs. The overheard call. He said nothing for a long time. Then you know what? This means right? I nodded. If we go after this, there's no turning back. He threatened me indirectly. He called me a favor. I don't care. Jackson stood, paced, then turned back. I need to verify everything. Can you send me every document? Already did. Encrypted folder. Passwords in your inbox. He smiled faintly. Really don't trust anyone? I trust you. That's why I'm here. And in that moment, we weren't billionaire and employee. We're allies. The next 48 hours were chaos. Jackson called a private audit. Quietly, behind closed doors. I stayed invisible. I worked as usual, smiled when expected. But I knew something. Big was coming, and I was ready. The morning of the confrontation, everything felt too quiet. Jackson had scheduled an emergency board meeting. No agenda, no details. Just an urgent request for full executive attendance at 10 a.m. in the Helix Core Glass Conference Suite. Word spread like wildfire. People speculated layoffs, a buyout, or worse. But I knew better. I sat at my desk pretending to review emails. While adrenaline buzzed in my veins, Jackson had barely looked at me that morning, but I understood why. This needed to be clean, professional, controlled. At 9:55 a.m., received a short message on our internal comms platform. You're in. Back row. Quiet. Watch everything. J.I. stood, smoothed my blouse, and walked to the conference floor like it was just another meeting. Inside, the executives were seated in a horseshoe formation. Jackson stood at the head. Vincent sat near the center, calm and composed, flipping through a leather notebook like he had nothing to hide. I took my seat at the back. Jackson opened. With a quiet, direct voice, "Thank you all for joining on short notice. What I'm about to present affects the integrity of Helix Core and every person sitting at this table. I ask for your full attention." He clicked a remote. The wall screen lit up with a vendor invoice. Valdera Solutions. This vendor received $180,000 last quarter. Finance approved the transaction. This company does not exist in our system. And the payment trail leads to an offshore shell company connected to one of our own. Murmurs. Jackson tapped the clicker again. Charts, emails, timestamps, all neatly organized. An internal investigation, quietly conducted, traced a pattern. A financial embezzlement tied to Valdera and 3 other fake vendors over the last 18 months. Total funds diverted, $4.7 million. He paused. The source of all approvals. Vincent Harmon. The room went silent. Vincent didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned back, arms folded. "Are you accusing me, Jackson? I'm presenting facts. You're welcome to offer your side." Vincent stood, slowly smiling. "You think this came out of nowhere? You brought in someone unqualified? You gave her access. You told her she was special. And she walked right into something she didn't understand." He turned to the board. "This is a witch hunt. Based on amateur sleuthing and assumptions." Jackson raised a hand. "Actually, it's based on server logs, audit trails, and confirmation from our external accounting firm." Then he turned to me. "Mira, would you share what you found?" I stood, heart racing. My hands shook, but my voice stayed steady. I shared everything. The discrepancies, the fake entries, the midnight access, the P.O. box, the connection to Harbridge Trust. I showed printed records, emails, screenshots. I recounted the overheard call. Vincent scoffed. "She's a temp assistant." "She's a whistleblower," Jackson said. "And she has more integrity in 1 week than you've shown in your entire tenure." Vincent lunged toward the table. "This is a setup. I want legal present. I want my contract. Security will escort you out," Jackson said calmly. 2 guards stepped into the room. Vincent froze. His jaw twitched. For the first time, he looked. Afraid, he turned to me. "You have no idea what you've done." I met his eyes. "Yes, I do. I protected this company. And I protected people like me." He didn't say another word. They let him out. The room was silent. Then slowly, one board member clapped, then another, and another. I sat down, shaking. Jackson closed his laptop. We rebuild from here. With honesty. Right. With eyes wide open. Later that day, I returned to my desk. The air was different. Eyes that once judged now nodded with respect. Elise brought me coffee. Rory winked as he passed. Jackson stopped by with a simple message. My office. Tomorrow morning. We need to talk about your future here. I nodded. But inside, I was already building it. After Vincent was escorted out of the boardroom, the air in Helix Core was thick with uncertainty. No one quite knew what would happen next. The fraud was exposed, but trust had been fractured in, not just in Vincent. People questioned how it had gone unnoticed for so long. Was anyone else involved? Who else had turned a blind eye? Monday morning, I stepped into the office expecting silence. Instead, I was met with cautious stares, hesitant nods, and a few whispered thank yous as I walked down the hallway. It was as if I had become both a symbol and a disruption. Jackson had texted me the night before. Tomorrow's going to be strange. Show up like you always do. We've got work to do. At 9:30 a.m., I was summoned to a meeting with HR, legal, and Jackson. The room was smaller than the boardroom, less intimidating, but every seat felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. I want to be clear, Jackson began. Mira acted. Within the bounds of her access, she followed her instincts, did the right thing, and uncovered a massive breach. That's not just commendable, it's leadership, the HR director nodded. We're recommending a formal commendation. And more importantly, we'd like Mira's help in designing a new internal transparency framework. My breath caught me. Jackson smiled. You've got something this place desperately needs in outsiders' eyes. Fresh, honest, and unafraid. That afternoon, my name was included in an all-company email, effective immediately. Mira Jensen will serve as special assistant to the CEO for internal integrity and ethics. Her bravery in uncovering fraud has sparked a company-wide commitment to transparency. By 3 p.m., my inbox had 98 unread messages. Some were skeptical, others were grateful, few were downright hostile. Who is she to tell us how to run a company? Respect. It took guts. Finally, someone from the real world in here. That evening, after putting Max to bed, I sat on my apartment balcony, staring into the night sky. The city lights blinked back at me. I didn't feel victorious. I felt overwhelmed. I called Jackson. I'm not sure I'm the right person for this, I admitted. He paused. That's exactly why you are. The weeks that followed were intense. I was tasked with forming a task force to audit internal systems and review every vendor relationship. I met with department heads, held open forums, and invited anonymous submissions of ethical concerns. At first no one showed, then one person came, then 3, then entire teams. People shared stories of overlooked complaints, favoritism, racial bias, and promotions. It was like pulling weeds in a garden that hadn't been tended for years. And the more we pulled, the more sunlight came in. Jackson checked in daily but gave me space. Elise from HR became my right hand. I used to be afraid of speaking up, she said one morning, but now I'm afraid of staying silent. We created an internal code of ethics document, hosted workshops, launched a whistleblower platform, and began rewriting policies. It wasn't all applause. Some execs pushed back. You're swinging too hard, one senior manager said. If that's what it takes to clean house, I replied, then I'll swing harder. Jackson backed me at every turn. But what surprised me most was how much I started to believe in myself. Max noticed the change too. You smile more. Now, he said during breakfast one day. I ruffled his hair. That's because Mommy's starting to believe she can do big things. 2 months in, I was invited to represent Helix Core at a tech ethics conference in Chicago. I stood on a stage, lights blinding, palms sweaty, and told my story to a room of strangers. Some cried, some clapped. Afterward, a woman approached me. I'm a single mom too, she said. He just gave me the courage to apply for a job I thought was too big for me. I walked off that stage lighter than air. That night I received a package at my hotel. Inside, a single letter. You changed more than one life with that talk. Thank you for changing mine. Jay, when I returned, the company felt new, not perfect, but better. I walked into the elevator and saw a poster with a quote from the new ethics manual. Integrity isn't loud, it's persistent. Mira Jensen, I smiled. Helix Core had changed. And so had I. Months had passed since the boardroom confrontation. Vincent Harmon's name had faded from office whispers, replaced by something quieter, stronger hope. Jackson and I kept our dynamic professional, though an unspoken warmth always hung between us. Sometimes, I'd catch him looking at me during meetings with a small smile, the kind that said, "You made it. I see you." One morning I arrived at my desk to find a note. "Come to the rooftop." Jay, when I stepped out into the sunlight. Jackson stood holding 2 coffees. I figured we deserved a breather. We talked about everything except work. Max, his latest science project. Jackson's dog, Milo. The quiet sacrifices leadership demanded. The loneliness, the fear of disappointing people. "You know," I said, sipping my coffee, "I always thought leadership was loud, flashy, but the more I do this, the more I realize it's just showing up." Over and over, he nodded. It's persistence with compassion. That day, he formally asked me to lead the newly launched Ethics and Inclusion Division, a permanent initiative designed to give voice to the overlooked. I took it, not because I felt ready, but because I believed in what it could become. We built something different, not just policies, but culture. I recruited employees from all levels, janitors, interns, managers, to join the advisory council. Everyone had a seat at the table. During one session, a quiet intern named Beth shared how she felt invisible in meetings. "I just don't think anyone would listen to someone like me." I leaned forward. "Beth, once upon a time, I didn't think anyone would listen to me either. And now, I get to help people find their voice. You're here because your voice matters." By spring, I was speaking at universities, panels, and business conferences across the country. I wasn't trying to be famous, I was just telling the truth. I shared stories of single mothers working 2 jobs, of invisible labor, of how I once texted a billionaire by mistake, and everything changed. Some laughed, others cried. But they all listened. Back at Helix Core, things weren't always smooth. Cultural change was slow. Some executives resisted. Why does she get to be the face of ethics? Because I earned it. And because Jackson believed in it. One day he pulled me into his office. "I want to nominate you for the National Women in Tech Leadership Circle." I blinked. "That's ... huge." He smiled. "You're already doing the work, time the world saw it." That night I stayed late at the office, alone in the dark, reading over my nomination package. My name, Mira Jensen, typed under nominee. It didn't feel real, but it was. At home, Max was thriving. His grades were up. He made the soccer team. And every night, he'd help me prep for my next speech by listening, asking questions, and clapping like a proud little coach. "You're gonna win, Mom," he said once. "You already did." Then came the invite from the mayor's office. Helix Core was being honored for corporate reform. I stood on stage beside Jackson, surrounded by peers and press, and delivered a short speech. Once I was a mother choosing between diapers and dinner. I helped shape a better future for others like me. Because a mistake when desperate text turned into a miracle. And I learned, when someone opens a door for you, hold it open for the next person too. The crowd stood. Cameras flashed. And in that moment, I felt my past, present, and future converge into something I'd never imagined. Mira Jensen, the accidental advocate. After the event, Jackson took me aside. "You know, it's not just your story that inspires people. It's your courage to keep telling it." I looked at him, even when it's hard. Especially then. We stood quietly for a moment. Then he said something I'd never forget. "You matter. Not because of what you've done, but because of who you are." Tears welled in my eyes. I nodded. That night, Max and I danced in our tiny kitchen, the award beside us, pizza boxes on the table, and laughter echoing through our home. We didn't need a mansion. We didn't need millions. We had everything. Offer came on a Monday. Rain pattered softly against the office windows as Jackson slid a crisp envelope across my desk. "Don't open it yet," he said with a grin. "Just ... breathe first." I laughed nervously. That bad? That good? Inside was a formal letter from the Helix Core Board. "Dear Ms. Mira Jensen, in recognition of your outstanding leadership, ethical reforms, and cultural impact, we are pleased to offer you the role of Director of Corporate Ethics and Inclusion, effective immediately. It was everything I had worked toward: a corner office, full creative freedom, more influence. But it came with a caveat: relocation to the San Francisco headquarters." I smiled faintly. "Wow." Jackson leaned on the edge of my desk. "It's a big move. You don't have to answer today." I nodded, grateful. But a war had already started inside me. That night, I watched Max sleep in his bed, his fingers curled around his stuffed bear. Could I uproot him again? He finally had stability. Friends, teachers who knew him, soccer practice and birthday parties. Our little apartment had become home, not just a place we lived. And then there was Jackson. We'd grown closer. Not romantic, not yet. But we leaned on each other, understood each other. I couldn't imagine those quiet rooftop coffees fading into email threads. Still, opportunity didn't knock twice, did it? Over the next few days, I interviewed quietly with the transition team in San Francisco. They were excited, eager. They saw me as a future face of national ethics reform. But each call left me more uncertain. During one panel prep session, Jackson found me staring at a travel brochure, silent. "Talk to me," he said. "I'm scared," I whispered. "Not of the job, but of losing what we've built here." Jackson sat beside me. "You don't owe anyone a sacrifice, Mira, especially not yourself." I looked at him. "What would you do?" He paused. "I'd follow what makes me feel most like me, not the job title, not the pay, the place where I'm still me." The next morning, I walked into the boardroom with my decision printed and signed. They were stunned. "You're declining?" one board member asked. "I'm declining the relocation," I clarified. "But I'd like to propose something better." I laid out a plan. A satellite ethics and inclusion branch rooted here, in the very city where the company had been transformed. I offered to lead it, grow it, mentor others, expand Helix Core's reach without losing its soul. Silence. Then applause. Jackson found me later by the coffee machine, his arms crossed and eyes glowing. "You just outmaneuvered a board full of sharks," I grinned. "You taught me well." "No," he said, walking closer. "You always had it in you." And then, for the first time since this journey began, he reached out and held my hand. No rush, no grand declaration, just presence. We stood there, fingers intertwined while the rest of the world spun on without us. Later that week, Max and I planted a small herb garden on our balcony. He wanted mint for tea. I wanted basil for pasta. We didn't talk about the move. He didn't ask, but I knew he understood. We were staying, rooted, together, and that more than any title or promotion was everything. It was the night before our big launch. City skyline shimmered outside my window, glowing with anticipation. Inside the Helix Core satellite office, the one I'd built from the ground up, my team finalized the last slides. Checked every metric, every line of code. This wasn't just another product rollout. This was the first full-scale report from the Department of Ethics and Inclusion. A year of initiatives. Dozens of voices elevated. Real impact. And somehow I was at the center of it. When the lights went off for our team meeting, a surprise video played. It was a montage. Clips of our mentorship sessions, office workshops, quiet moments I didn't realize had been captured. The last slide read, "Thank you for showing us that no title defines a leader. You just have to choose to be one," I cried. The next morning, I stood at the podium at Helix Core's Global Summit. I remembered every version of myself. The terrified woman texting a stranger for baby formula? The temp scanning spreadsheets in silence. The whistleblower shaking as she handed over evidence. The single mom eating instant noodles while Max slept in her lap. And now, the keynote speaker. After the applause faded, Jackson found me backstage. "You crushed it," he said. I smiled. "Couldn't have done any of this without your weird habit of answering random texts." He stepped closer. "I didn't answer it because it was random. I answered it because ... It sounded like someone I didn't want to ignore. This time, I reached for his hand first. Months later, I received a national award for ethical innovation in business. Max held the plaque higher than I did. Our apartment was still modest. I still drove a used car, but the peace, the joy, unmeasurable. I often visit schools now, sharing my story. Not the billionaire part, that's Jackson's chapter. Mine is about not giving up when no one claps, about standing your ground even when your voice shakes. When I tell them the title of my talk, they always laugh. It started with a wrong text, but by the end, they're crying too. Because in life, it's not always the planned paths that lead to greatness. Sometimes it's the detours, the broken roads, the mistyped messages that lead you right where you belong. The first morning Jackson offered to watch Noah, I stood at the front door frozen, the keys in my hand rattling with my nerves. A billionaire CEO kneeling beside a toy box in my cramped living room was not a scene I'd ever expected to witness. I had met him less than 2 months ago through a wrong number. But somehow, in that short time, he'd become someone I trusted. Someone who stayed. And now, someone who was volunteering to take care of my son. Noah, only 3, stared at Jackson. Curiously, his eyes wide and unblinking. He held tightly to my jeans like they were his lifeline. "Hi, buddy," Jackson said gently, lowering himself to Noah's eye level. "Want to build a tower with me?" Noah said nothing at first. His little brow furrowed as he considered this well-dressed stranger with perfectly styled hair and polished shoes. But then he reached into his toy box, pulled out a red block, and placed it in Jackson's outstretched hand. That was how it started. No grand gesture. Just one quiet offering. I stood there for a moment longer, watching Jackson carefully place the block on another, exaggerating the wobble, and then pretending to be shocked when the tower fell. Noah giggled, the kind of belly laugh that toddlers give without inhibition. Something in my chest relaxed. "You sure you're okay?" I asked, still gripping the doorknob. "Go," he said. "We'll be fine." I stepped outside and took a deep breath. The sun was barely up, casting long shadows across the street. I was heading into my first day at Helix Cora Company that felt like a world far removed from my own. Walking into that glass building was like stepping onto another planet. Everything gleamed. The marble floors, the chrome accents, the carefully curated plants. I could smell the espresso from the in-house cafe. Everyone moved with purpose, dressed in tailored suits and designer shoes. I, on the other hand, wore a thrift store blazer over a blouse with a button missing. My black flats had a small tear. I'd tried to hide with glue. Orientation began in a large conference room filled with at least 50 new hires. Most were fresh out of Ivy League schools. They chatted in low tones, flashing their business cards and comparing LinkedIn profiles. I took a seat in the back, hoping not to be noticed. When the facilitator asked everyone to introduce themselves and say one interesting fact, I nearly panicked. What was interesting about me that I once bought expired formula on discount? That I could cook 3 meals from a box of rice and a can of beans? "I'm Mira," I said when it was my turn, my voice trembling slightly. "And I can recite all the nursery rhymes from memory, even backwards." A few people laughed politely. But the woman beside McClara, I later learned it smiled with genuine warmth. "You've got a good memory then," she said. "That'll help here." After orientation, I was given a badge, a login, and a cubicle on the 17th floor. My new boss, Lisa, greeted me briefly, handed me a list of ongoing projects, and pointed me to a desk with an outdated monitor and a chair that squeaked. "I don't expect miracles," she said, "but I expect results." I nodded, pretending to understand. I was terrified. The first week was a whirlwind. I came in early, stayed late, and took notes on everything. Every acronym, every product line, every campaign. I downloaded manuals and studied old marketing decks like they were sacred texts. I watched company webinars at night while feeding Noah or folding laundry. Some nights, I cried quietly in bed. The stress was overwhelming. The fear of failure gnawed at me. Still, I showed up. 2 weeks in, I saw a chance to contribute. The company had been running a series of bland, forgettable posts on their social media, promoting an upcoming product line. I knew it wasn't working, engagement was low, and the comment sections were filled with sarcasm. I created a sample post on my own time, short video with storytelling, featuring testimonials from small businesses who had benefited from Helix Core's platform. I shared it with Lisa during our Monday check-in. She barely looked up. "We'll see," she said. But 3 days later, the video was live. It gained traction. Comments poured in. The engagement rate tripled. That evening, Jackson called. "I saw your post," he said. I blinked. "You did?" "I see everything," he replied with a hint of amusement. It was brilliant. I didn't know what to say. "Keep going, Mira. You're just getting started." That was the first time I felt like I belonged, but not everyone was happy. Rumors began to swirl. Some said I had an unfair advantage because of Jackson. Others whispered that I had no qualifications. I heard the laughter behind my back, the raised eyebrows. I told myself it didn't matter, that I was here to work, that Noah needed me to succeed. At night, Jackson and I would exchange texts. Sometimes about work, sometimes about life, sometimes nothing at all. Night, I asked him why he cared, because no one believed in my mother either, he replied, and she deserved everything. The next morning, he showed up at our apartment with muffins. "For Noah," he said, handing over a cartoon-themed bag. "And what about me?" I asked, teasing. He grinned. "Your gift is in the confidence you're building." That was Jackson, observant, steady, and that was the beginning of everything changing. It was a Tuesday morning, gray and misty. When I received the calendar invite, the subject line read, "Review of candidate credentials, urgent." The sender was Julian Vaughn, head of the executive board, a man known for his clipped speech and unforgiving standards. My stomach churned. The moment I saw it, stared at the screen for a good 10 minutes before I accepted. In the weeks since my first campaign's success, the air at Helix Core had changed. People started noticing me, but not necessarily in a good way. Some congratulated me with stiff smiles, while others avoided eye contact altogether. Rumors buzzed. Through the hallways like hornets, she skipped the ladder. Jackson has a soft spot for her. Where did she even come from? I knew what they were implying. I didn't have a college degree, hadn't spent years climbing the corporate ladder, hadn't paid the price they believed I should have. The boardroom was on the top floor, an intimidating space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A place where decisions were made by people whose shoes cost more than my monthly rent. I walked in alone. No lawyer, no mentor. Just a notepad, and my resume printed on cream-colored paper. Jackson was already seated at the far end of the polished mahogany table, his face unreadable. "It's Patel," Julian greeted, adjusting his wireframe glasses. "Please, have a seat." There were 12 others at the table. The temperature in the room felt sub-zero, and not just because of the air conditioning. I sat, spine straight, hands folded in my lap. Julian cleared his throat. "We've reviewed your background and noted some ... inconsistencies." I raised an eyebrow. "No? Inconsistencies?" "Your file notes completion of various online courses, but lacks a traditional business degree. This raises concern regarding your qualifications for the projects you are managing." "Concern from whom exactly?" I asked. Few eyes darted to each. One woman near the end shifted uncomfortably in her chair. No one answered. I looked down at the resume I'd brought, then back up at the board. My heart was pounding, but my voice remained calm. "I don't have a traditional degree," I said, "because life didn't offer me that option." A long pause followed. "I began working when I was 16, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. When I became a mother, I worked nights while Noah slept. I taught myself digital marketing using public library Wi-Fi and free online tools. I learned graphic design on borrowed laptops. And the first time I used those skills, I helped a local food pantry triple their donations during a holiday campaign. More silence. Do I have a diploma on my wall? No, but I have experience. I have results. And I have hunger, the kind that doesn't let you sleep at night because your child depends on you. A few people shifted in their chairs again. Julian, however, didn't flinch. That may all be true, Ms. Patel, he said. But this is a billion-dollar corporation. We have reputational standards to uphold. I nodded slowly. Then judge me by my work, not by my background. Still, Jackson said nothing. He sat with his hands clasped, his gaze fixed on me. Felt like betrayal, and I couldn't hide the sting. After what felt like an eternity, Julian ended the meeting. We will deliberate. Thank you for your time. I stood up. I felt eyes follow me as I walked to the door. I didn't let them see my disappointment. But inside I was unraveling. Later that afternoon, Jackson found me in the break room, staring into a cup of tea that had long gone cold. You were brilliant in there, he said. You didn't say anything, because if I had, they would have claimed you only stood because I lifted you. You needed to own that moment, and you did. Tears pricked my eyes, but I blinked them away. I thought I was alone. You never are. Not really. The next morning, I received an email. The subject line read, Board Decision Credentials Review. I held my breath as I clicked it. After careful review, the board has decided that Ms. Mira Patel shall remain in her current role, with continued oversight and quarterly reviews. It wasn't a full victory, wasn't an apology. It was a start. In the following weeks, I poured myself into my work with renewed fire. Every campaign I launched outperformed the last. I sought feedback, took notes, networked, learned. One day, Lisa pulled me aside. I don't know what your story is, but you're the best thing to happen to this team in years. I smiled quietly. That was all the validation I needed. And yet, the shadows of judgment still lingered. At every elevator pitch, every team briefing, I could feel them waiting for me to trip. So I trained harder, woke up earlier, gave 120% every day. Jackson. He remained in the background, quietly observing, quietly supporting. One night, he sent me a message. The ones who challenge you the most are the ones scared of what you're capable of. I stared at that message for a long time, because he was right. I was just getting started. Love didn't announce itself with a kiss or grand confession. It came quietly. Through a look across the room, a hand offered in silence. A text message after a hard day that simply read, You were amazing today. After the boardroom ordeal, I had built up walls around my heart, strong enough to keep out even the idea of vulnerability. But Jackson had a way of slipping through the cracks I didn't know existed. We started spending more time together outside of work. At first, it was casual. He'd drop by after work with takeout, pretending he just happened to be in the area. I'd invite him in, pretending I hadn't been waiting. One night after dinner, we sat on my tattered couch watching an old cartoon Noah liked. Jackson had his arm stretched along the back of the sofa, his fingers brushing my shoulder gently. Noah had fallen asleep, curled up between us, and the quiet was comfortable, familiar. Why do you keep coming here? I asked suddenly. Jackson glanced at me, startled by the question. You want me to stop? I shook my head. No, I just... You're a billionaire. You could be anywhere. Why here? Why us? He looked down at Noah, his voice soft. Because here, I feel like someone who matters. It's not because of money, not because of status, just ... because. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. We had unspoken boundaries then. We were not yet a couple. There was too much unsaid. Too much we hadn't unpacked. He was a man with everything but love. I was a woman with nothing but love to give. One weekend, he invited us to his family's estate in Vermont. I hesitated. Is it a date? I asked. No, he said. It's a weekend. No pressure. Just fresh air and snow. Noah was ecstatic. He'd never seen snow before. When we arrived, the estate looked like something out of a winter postcard, sprawling lawns blanketed in white, trees trimmed with icicles, a cabin-style guest house with warm light glowing from the windows. The first night, we made hot chocolate and told stories by the fireplace. Jackson let Noah sit on his lap and read aloud from a children's book with ridiculous voices. "You'd make a great dad," I said before I could stop myself. He glanced up, eyes shining. "You think so?" "I know so." There was a moment, charged, quiet, heavy. We didn't kiss, didn't touch, but we understood. The next morning, I found a photo in the guest room. It was Jackson as a boy, maybe 10, sitting beside a woman who looked tired but kind. "That's my mother," he said, standing in the doorway. "She has your eyes." He nodded. "She died when I was 14, ovarian cancer." I turned to him. "You were just a boy. I became a man overnight." My father believed grief was weakness, sent me to boarding school 3 days after the funeral. I never cried again. I wanted to hold him then, to erase all the years of silence and loneliness. But instead I said, "You don't have to be that man with me." Jackson slowly approached. "You make it hard not to care, Mira." I looked down. "Is that a bad thing?" "No, but it terrifies me, because I care about you, about Noah, and I'm not sure what to do with that." I met his gaze, then we figured out, together. We didn't label it. We didn't announce it. But from that moment, we were something. The weeks that followed were both beautiful and uncertain. We shared moments that felt like chapters from a love story neither of us thought we'd get to. Liv. He taught Noah how to ride a bike, taught Jackson how to cook a proper curry. He left notes on my desk at work. I sent him voice memos when he had a rough day. And slowly, our lives began to intertwine in a way that felt natural. Love isn't without friction. One night during dinner, I mentioned a junior analyst on my team who kept undermining my ideas. "Then fire him," Jackson said bluntly. I paused. "It doesn't work like that. I need to prove I can lead without pulling rank." He shrugged. "Sometimes. Power speaks louder." I bristled. "Not everyone has the privilege of power, Jackson. Some of us have to earn respect the hard way." The room went silent. Noah played with his food, unaware. "I didn't mean it like that," Jackson finally said. "But you said it. And that tells me you still don't get what it means to come from nothing." He stood up, walking to the window. "You think I don't struggle? You think wealth erases pain?"
I stood too.
"No, but you get to choose your battles." I never had that luxury. We didn't speak for 2 days after that. It was the longest silence since we met. When he finally came back, he didn't bring flowers or gifts. He brought his vulnerability. "I read every page of my mother's journal," he said. She wrote about love, about how real love is built, not on perfection, but on patience. I want to try, Mira, even if I fail sometimes. Even if I don't always understand, I want to learn. How to love like that? I stepped into his arms. "Then let's learn together." And just like that, we were us again. It's not perfect, but real. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a visitor in someone else's story. I was finally writing my own. Success is often followed by sabotage. I learned that the hard way. 3 months into my role at Helix Core, I was chosen to spearhead a major social impact initiative, a campaign to expand access to digital education in underserved communities. For me, it was more than a project. It was personal. I taught myself everything online with nothing but free resources and sheer will. This was my chance to pay it forward. I poured every ounce of myself into the presentation. Late nights turned into early mornings, stayed up while Noah slept, and used every minute at work to perfect my pitch. Clara from HR brought me coffee. Lisa, my manager, told me she'd never seen someone so determined. The presentation was scheduled for Monday morning. Friday night, I saved the final draft. Charts, analytics, testimonials, rollout strategies, everything. Saturday morning, I opened my laptop to rehearse. The file was gone, not just the file. The entire folder. Years of data, design, drafts, backup decks, erased. Panic surged through me. I checked the trash. Empty. I opened my cloud drive. Empty. I opened the backups. Corrupted. My heart raced. I wanted to scream, but Noah was sleeping in the next room. I called Jackson. "Everything's gone," I whispered, trying not to cry. "What do you mean gone?" "The presentation, the research, all of it. Someone deleted everything." He was silent for a moment. "Do you think this was an accident?" "No. I'll have it look into it." "No," I said firmly. "I'll handle it," he exhaled. "Okay, I trust you." Spent the entire weekend recreating the presentation from memory. I pulled late-night screenshots from my phone. I borrowed quotes from emails. I messaged past collaborators. I re-downloaded data. I didn't sleep. By Sunday evening, I had about 80% of the original material, but it was raw and unpolished. That night, Clara texted me, privately. We met in a coffee shop near her apartment. She looked nervous, glancing around before sitting across from me. "I shouldn't be telling you this," she said, "but you deserve to know." My stomach twisted. "A board member, Julian Von He, accessed your project files using an intern's credentials. Promised the kid a reference letter. Told him it was a routine check." I stared at her. "Why would Julian want to sabotage me?" "Because you're threatening the hierarchy. He's grooming his niece for that VP position. Your success is making waves." I leaned back, stunned. "I'm so sorry," Clara said, tears in her eyes. I reached out, touched her hand. "Thank you. You just gave me back my power." Monday morning, I walked into the boardroom, exhausted but composed. My blouse was ironed. My notes were in hand. My voice, steady. The presentation went forward. Not perfectly, but passionately. I showed the initiative's potential to reach 50,000 students in the first phase. I shared testimonials from teachers in rural schools. I ended with a simple message. Education changed my life. Let's give that gift to others. Silence followed. Then applause. I glanced at Julian. His face was stone. Afterward, Jackson approached me privately. "I know everything," he said. "Clara," he nodded. "She did the right thing." "What will you?" "Do nothing yet." I blinked. "Nothing?" "If I act, it'll look like favoritism. If you rise despite him, it's unshakable." It took everything in me not to shout. So I just let him get away with it? No, you let him bury himself. 2 weeks later, Julian was asked to resign quietly. Officially. Due to internal ethical breaches. Unofficially. Because I made it. Impossible to deny my value. I didn't celebrate. I went home, picked up Noah from daycare, and let him cover me in finger paint while we made a rainbow poster. Because that's what the fight was really for. Every time someone tried to pull me down, I climbed higher. And this time, I did it my way. The morning after Julian's quiet exit, an email arrived in my inbox marked confidential. It was from the executive office. The subject, proposal for advancement. I stared at it for several minutes before opening it. The email was brief but clear. The board, impressed by my recent leadership and resilience, was offering me a promotion, Vice President of Social Innovation. The position came with power, prestige, a corner office, and a salary that made me audibly gasp. With this income, I could buy a home, pay for Noah's future, support causes I believed in. For a moment, I just sat there, the weight of the offer, sinking in, and then the fear crept in. I walked out of my cubicle and went straight to the garden terrace outside Helix Core's 19th floor, the place where I went when I needed to breathe. It overlooked the city, but it also overlooked everything I'd overcome. Jackson found me there, as if he knew I'd be needing space. "They made the offer," I said. "I heard," he replied.
Oh.
"It's everything I wanted, and somehow, ... It doesn't feel right." He didn't look surprised. "Because you know why they're offering it?" "Because I earned it, but also because they're scared of what I represent, what it means if someone like me rises without their permission." Jackson was quiet for a moment, then said, "You don't owe them anything." but you owe yourself the truth. I nodded. Then I need to think. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my living room floor with Noah asleep beside me and wrote a list of everything that mattered. Integrity, purpose, freedom, voice. I wrote why I had started this journey. It was never about titles. It was about change. The next day, I walked into the boardroom and handed them my decision in person. I'm honored by the offer, I said, but I'm declining. There were murmurs. Shock. Julian's replacement, a sharp woman named Eileen, leaned forward. May we ask why? Because I won't be used as a token. Because the position as it stands doesn't reflect what I bring or what I stand for. And because I'm still building. I'm not finished yet. Silence. I want to lead by example. Continued, not by shortcut. If you want to create space for people like me, do it the right way. Don't just hand me a title. Hand me a platform to prove this can be done. I left the room unsure of what would come next. But the feeling in my chest wasn't fear. It was peace. Later. That afternoon, Jackson found me in my office. Had a grin on his face. You're the only person I know who turns down a 6-figure raise and earns more respect doing it. I rolled my eyes. Don't start. Seriously, he said, softening. That was brave. It was honest. We sat quietly for a while. They'll come back with a better offer, he said. One that matches your value. On your terms. And if they don't, then you'll build something better, and I'll back you. Always. I looked at him, heart swelling, even if I never take the corner office, especially then. That night, I held Noah a little longer, kissed his forehead, looked at the stars from our tiny balcony and whispered, "We're going to be okay." Because I had chosen something more valuable than power. I had chosen purpose. The proposal wasn't grand. It wasn't staged or posted online. It didn't involve a velvet box on a rooftop or a flash mob or a perfectly rehearsed speech. It happened on a Tuesday night in my kitchen. Jackson had just finished drying dishes while Noah scribbled pictures of stick-figure superheroes on the fridge with magnetic markers. The scent of jasmine rice and cardamom still hung in the air. We were barefoot, tired, and full of dinner. Of life. Of each other. He handed me a dish towel, looked me in the eye, and said, "I can't imagine waking up without you." I laughed, assuming he was just being sweet. Then he pulled something from his back pocket, a piece of paper, folded. "I wrote this the first night I stayed here," he said. "Before I ever told you how I felt." He unfolded it and read aloud. "If love is about showing up, about staying when it's hard, about folding laundry and helping with homework, then I am. Already yours?" My hand flew to my mouth. "I don't need a ceremony," he continued, "but I want one. Not for the world, for us. For Noah, for this life we're building." I didn't speak. I just nodded, tears streaming down my cheeks. Wedding was small. We rented a cabin in the mountains for the weekend. Tuxedos, no press. Just us, a few close friends, Clara and Lisa from work, Jackson's cousin Ben, and our son front and center, in a navy blue vest with his hair combed for the first time ever. I wore a soft cream dress. Jackson wore a dark gray suit. We stood under a canopy of twinkle lights and pine trees, our fingers interlaced. We exchanged vows we had written ourselves. "You walked into my life when I had nothing," I said, "and you stayed. Not because I needed you, but because you chose to. I promised to choose you too." Every single day, he looked at me like he was. "Seeing home, you gave me back my heart," he whispered, "you and Noah. You made me believe in love without condition. A family built from choice, not blood. I vow to be present, to listen, to stay." Noah was our ring bearer. He ran up to us with the rings tied to a tiny stuffed elephant. Everyone laughed. We kissed, and the forest felt like it applauded. Afterward, we sat on wool blankets around a bonfire, eating marshmallows and telling stories. Jackson wrapped his coat around my shoulders, even though he was the one shivering. Later that night, in the stillness of our cabin, I watched him sleeping beside me and thought, so this is what safe feels like. Not because he had money or power, but because he loved without possession. because he stayed. Marriage didn't change us. It confirmed us. We built routines. Morning coffee while Noah colored at the table. Grocery runs where we argued over cereal brands. Quiet evenings where we sat close, not needing words. There were hard days, too. Days when work overwhelmed me. Days when Noah got sick and I panicked. Days when Jackson struggled with board politics, and I saw the weight he carried. But through it all, we kept choosing each other. One evening, I came home late, exhausted. The lights were dimmed. A note on the counter read, "In the backyard." I stepped out to find Jackson and Noah lying on a blanket, staring up at the stars. "Come lie down," Jackson said. I did. Noah pointed upward. "That one's Mama's star." I smiled. "Why is it mine?" "'Cause it's the brightest one, and you always come back to us." I wrapped my arms around them both. This was love. Not loud. Not flashy. Just enduring. A love that didn't need rescuing. A love that stayed. We had just returned from a weekend trip to the coast when the letter arrived. It was tucked into our mailbox, handwritten with no return address. At first, I thought it was a thank you note from a neighbor. But as I opened it, the familiarity of the handwriting chilled me. It was from Raj, Noah's father. I hadn't heard from him in nearly 4 years. He had left shortly after Noah's first birthday, saying fatherhood wasn't for him. Had been no calls, no support, not even a birthday card. Now, out of nowhere, a letter. Jackson noticed the shift in my face. "Who is it from?" "Noah's biological father," I said, my voice hollow. The letter was short. Raj said he had turned a corner. He wanted to see Noah. "Just once," he wrote. "To make peace." I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to slam the door shut on that chapter forever. Another part wondered if Noah had a right to know where he came from, even if it was messy. We talked for hours. "I support whatever you decide," Jackson said. "But Noah's safety and peace come first." I agreed to meet Raj alone in a public place, a cafe, neutral ground. He looked older, thinner, but his eyes still had that same restless gleam. "You look well," he said. "I'm better without you," I replied evenly. He winced but nodded. I deserved that. He told me he had joined a recovery program, that he'd sobered up, that he had regrets. "I don't want custody or to disrupt your life," he said. "I just want to apologize. And if someday, when he's older, he wants to meet me, I hope you won't stand in the way." His sincerity surprised me. I didn't forgive him, but I saw that. He was broken too. "That will be Noah's choice," I said. "If he asks one day, I won't lie. But for now, he has a father." Raj nodded. "Jackson." "Yes, Jackson." He reached into his wallet and pulled out a photograph, the only baby photo he had of Noah. "Thank you for loving him." I left the cafe with a strange peace. Closure, maybe. Later that night, I told Jackson everything. "You protected Noah's world," he said. "That matters more than anything." And as I watched him read Noah a bedtime story, I knew we had made the right choice. 6 months later, I received an invitation to speak at a national tech summit. The topic, unconventional paths to innovation. I hesitated. "You should do it," Jackson said. "Your story can inspire people." Public speaking terrified me, but I accepted. The summit was in San Francisco. Noah stayed with Jackson, and I boarded a flight for the first time in years. The room was packed. Hundreds of entrepreneurs, students, executives. I stood backstage, my heart pounding. Then I remembered why I was here, not to impress, but to be real. I walked to the podium. 4 years ago, I sent a text to the wrong number asking for help buying baby formula. That mistake changed my life. I told them about Helix Core, about Noah, about the challenges I faced, the ceilings I broke, the voices that tried to silence me. I ended with this. We often talk about success like it lives at the top of a ladder. But for many of us, success is just survival. It's resilience. It's showing up when you're tired and staying when everything tells you to leave. And sometimes, success is just asking for help. The applause was thunderous. Afterward, a young woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "You gave me hope," she whispered. Back home, Jackson met me at the airport with flowers. Noah ran into my arms. Did you save the world, Mama? He asked. No, I said, but I found mine. Later that week, I received a call. A national foundation wanted to partner with me to build a mentorship program for women in tech. I said yes, because the future wasn't just ours to dream, it was ours to build. If someone had told me that a misfired text message begging for baby formula money would lead me to this life, I would have laughed or maybe cried, because it wasn't just about luck. It wasn't just about finding the right person on the other end of the line. It was about choice. Choosing to fight. Choosing to believe. Choosing to stay. This journey wasn't just mine. It was Noah's too. His laughter on hard days, his belief in magic, his way of pulling light into even the darkest corners. He reminded me every single day why I had to keep going, like in Jackson. He didn't swoop in to save me. He showed me what love looks like when it doesn't come with expectations or demands. He stayed through my uncertainty, through my trauma, through my need to be whole on my own. We built something beautiful not out of perfection, but out of truth. And now, every time I stand in front of a crowd, every time I mentor a young woman trying to find her way, I remember that scared, desperate mother with a cracked phone and an empty wallet. I remember the courage it took to send that message. Sometimes the smallest act of reaching out becomes the spark for everything that follows. So if you're standing at the edge of a hard choice, if you're unsure of your worth or afraid of climb ahead. Let this be your sign. You are capable. You are worthy. You are not alone. This isn't just a love story. It's a survival story. And you're allowed to write your own ending, even if it starts with a mistake.